Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation, where we shine a light on loss and grief and how it impacts our lives. We are here to provide hope, resources, and a community so no one feels alone in their grief. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation. My name is TJ Jackson, and with me is my eldest brother, Mr. Taj Jackson.
What's up, T?
What is going on, big bro?
It's hot down here.
It is hot.
It's shiny and hot.
Today's date is August 16, 2023, and we are live, of course. So if you're listening to us right now, or I should say watching us on Facebook or YouTube, we want to thank you for joining us. You may be listening to us via the podcast. Yes, the Power of Love show is on all the major podcast platforms. So you very well could be listening to us that way. If you do listen to our show via podcast, we would like you to, especially if you're getting something out of it, to leave a review, to give us the 5 stars or whatever it takes to get the perfect score. That way, for anyone who may be looking for this kind of content, it's easier for them to find it. So please consider doing that. And yeah, Taj, am I missing anything else?
I think so.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah,
I feel like we're missing it. No, you're good. You're not on mute, big bro.
Okay.
You were just so professional, but now
I am trying to be professional.
Anyways, you know what we're missing, Taj? You know what we're missing is we're missing the disclaimer.
Well, I was going to say it, but I'm not saying it.
We are not licensed therapists. We are just ordinary people who've experienced loss in our lives. We've been impacted by it, and we have learned from it. And we like to share our opinions in an attempt to help you get through whatever it is you may be going through. Saying that if you need professional help, we urge you to seek it and to find it. Please do not just rely on us. So, Taj, this is Power of Love show 293. I got a confirmation.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we are
so close to 300 shows. Unbelievable.
Nice.
It's a huge accomplishment. Very proud of that. So big shout out to you, Taj, to all of our board members, our prior board members, to help us get to such a high number. I know this is something I should probably say when we get to 300, but you never know. I may forget. So we're gonna make a big deal out of it now. With that said, Taj, we have a great show lined up for today. But before we go that route, we like to talk about our prior week. So I'm asking you, anything exciting or anything you want to share from this week?
Honestly, I don't remember. I know I saw you yesterday. That's about as far as I can go back. But in terms of everything else, I got a newborn baby. So everything is like, I just realized that tomorrow she'll be a month old. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So, that's how fast time flies in that way.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
But I'm not getting much sleep. But at the same time, it's like, you take one look at her and you're like, oh, okay, this is worth it. But
any difference, Taj, that you've noticed so far? I know we're only a month in, but any difference?
I've learned that all my kids, they learn from the other one. And so she's already learned how to be spoiled in a way. Like she's mastered the art of, like, if I cry enough, they'll pick me up, kind of already. And she learned that really quick. Like Taylor took a little while, and Toria kind of learned, oh, I can do this. And with Tylee, it's just like it's almost like she had the instruction manual in the womb. Because she, like, literally, it was within days that she was like, okay, I know how this operates. And
that's so cool.
It's kind of scary, and they're all learning from each other, and they're, but it's a blessing. It's just
going to get better, man. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm excited for all the memories you'll make.
I'm taking a lot of pictures and video for that reason.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
So cool. As Summer Vine says, that too shall pass. They grow up quickly. They'll learn to sleep longer soon.
Yeah.
So. Okay, Taj. As for me,
what did you do?
I've been all over the place. So I've been tired. I've been, just doing a lot. So I'm gonna leave it there. But I rather, truthfully, just not even go into what I've done and just shine a light, as I know you would want to as well, on what's going on in Maui. It's a
Oh
very
yes.
difficult time for everyone out there in Maui, and I assume all of you who are watching or listening to us are aware of it. But it's just a really difficult time, and just want to send our collective love, not just me and Taj and our foundation, but from all of you to anyone who's over there on the island of Maui. Just let you know that we are thinking of you and we are praying for you, and that we are sending you so much light. It's such a sad and difficult time for all of you, and we want to let you know we are here for you. I think that's very important to
Well
say.
said, T. Well said.
Um, okay, Todd, I think that's it on my side. And you shared what you were up to, so they at least got one update from one of us.
Yes,
And I think we can go into our guest if you're cool with that.
definitely.
Cool. So, on today's episode of the Power of Love show, we welcome a special guest. Her name is Brittany Day. Brittany Day is a surviving sibling after the tragic loss of her brother Eric during her childhood. Experiencing grief at a young age proved to be confusing with limited resources for support. It wasn't until the death of her twin daughters, Sophie and Ruby, who were stillborn, that she started to understand and embrace grief. Realizing the still limited resources for siblings who are grieving, she co-wrote a book with her daughter Eliza entitled "I'm Still a Big Sister," explaining stillbirth and providing a glimpse at life after. They donate copies of the book as well as sibling bereavement memory boxes to their local hospitals and others by request. Here today to discuss her book, I'm Still a Big Sister, and how we as a community can help provide more memory boxes for bereaved siblings. Without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Brittany Day to the Power of Love show. Yeah.
Hey.
Brittany, first of all, we want to send a big. By the way, that was Taj on the applause track. If you guys are sick of him doing that, let us know. He's having.
I think our guests deserve applauses because they, you know,
That's
they
true.
we're honored to have you, Brittany, in that way. And we used to not have an applause track, and honestly, it felt like there's something missing in that because, for what after hearing everyone's story, and I'm going to hear your story, it
It's commendable for coming on and sharing it and trying to do something to help the next person who could go through it.
exactly, we all had that in common in that way.
Very much. And I'm going to go right ahead into what we want to talk about, because at least for me, but I think Taj can agree, when we lost our mother at a young age, we didn't feel there were many resources at our disposal to help us get through and navigate our grief. I remember clearly going to the Barnes and Noble. Yes, it was a Barnes and Nobles then,
90s,
and
yeah, so yeah.
in the 90s, and not really finding a book that spoke to me. So I'm always commendable and always happy when people write a book or do something to try to help someone else and provide a resource. So my first question is, did you find this was the case when you tragically, I think we said it a bit, but when you tragically lost your brother Eric during your childhood, did you also feel like there wasn't much out there?
Yes. And, honestly, I think at the same time as I was so confused, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to grieve. Like, I didn't know, it was like a grown up conversation. The grown ups were talking about the death, and the grown ups were talking about, grief, and the grown ups were crying, and, all of that. I didn't know where I fit in that situation. I felt like, when I walked into the room and they were talking about it, it was kind of like a hush hush thing. So then I'm like, okay, what do I do with that? So what happened is I just kind of hid my grief away, my emotions a lot for a long time, because, I just didn't understand it. And there was no, I don't even know if I'd thought about a book at the time, or, therapy or anything along those lines, because those just didn't seem realistic.
Now as an adult who is seeing that there is still work to be done on this front, did the lack of adequate resources in the grief space, specifically sibling grief, did that drive the inspiration for you to launch your brand, Surviving Siblings?
Yeah. So, again, I was in this space still, even after, my stillbirth, that I wasn't sure the sibling aspect. And, siblings are often the forgotten grievers, and I wanted to make a space where, I could share moments of, not just my grief as a sibling, but raising a surviving sibling and, what that looked like. And, being able to show happy moments even in sad moments in life, and normalizing celebrating holidays and birthdays and even family vacations. While we know we're still missing that person, we're still somehow including them, whether it's drawing names in sand, or at the beach, or releasing bubbles, which we do a lot, and different things like that, lighting candles. And I wanted to make sure that people saw that, but, I wanted to make sure that people that needed it saw it, not just, my friends and family. I wanted to make sure that it was relatable for other people, if I could reach other people.
Now we know all drift, all grief is different and could be experienced, and people go through grief differently. We lost a parent at a young age. We've had many guests on here who've lost a child, both incredibly challenging and difficult scenarios. But one type of grief that I do feel, I don't want to say it gets overlooked, but doesn't get as much attention or empathy. I got to be careful how I say that, but is sibling loss. It feels like you go straight to the parent or to a child, and that's like the top echelon of type of loss and grief. But a sibling loss, especially if you're close to the sibling, that can be incredibly difficult. You're thinking of milestones that you are no longer able to enjoy with this person, and then this is all speculation because I haven't went through that. And
No, that's right. That's all right.
but and this is why I'm saying all this, Brittany, because I want you to correct me and kind of inform everyone, not only just my brother and I, but everyone, what you feel is missed out on in terms of sibling grief, or what we're not realizing. But I would also assume there is this sense of, and fear is the wrong word, but a sense of mortality that you now feel like could be right around the corner for you because it's your sibling. Am I right in this? And then
No, that's absolutely right. And I haven't really talked about this aspect a lot, but when it happened, I was 14, he was 18 at the time, and technically an adult, but in my eyes he was still a kid. I was in high school, and I was learning at that time that young people could die, and I didn't realize, I knew that it happened, but it's a completely different thing when it happens right in front of you, and someone close to you. And I think the mortality behind that, right along that time, was the Columbine High School shooting. So you tie in, a big loss, to me. And then, I find out people are getting killed at school, and it's an immediate, like, oh my gosh, that could happen to me. If, I've already been a statistic over here, what's different here? And, anxiety is really, really big. Trying to stay safe is, big for me too, because, my parents were very hurt, obviously. And, I saw them go through that grief, and, so I wouldn't want to do that to them, so that was a big deal, trying to keep myself safe and, being anxious about that. So yeah, that's definitely, a big deal.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. And Summer Violence says losing a sibling must be so hard. Can't even imagine it. And for the other siblings to feel like they have to consider their parents' feelings, etc. It's got to be tough. And Angela says this is a fact. Thank you, Brittany, for bringing the awareness vitally needed. I was a grieving sibling and took care of my mother. As kids, it was the parents. My sister and I had to deal with our feelings in silence. It's very powerful.
Right.
Very, very powerful. And
it's
something
very isolating. It's very isolating.
It's something that I truthfully until now did never even considered or thought about. It's got to be a very tough place to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be a very tough place to be. Todd, did you want to add something?
No, I mean, I'm just very grateful that Brittany's on with us, because this is a point of view that is just, as I haven't heard about this as much in that way. And so I'm learning a lot in terms of listening in that way, because I didn't even think about a kid's point of view of like seeing, the hush hush of the older adults and that and all that. And as a kid, what you're going through as a teenager or whatever, in terms of like, why aren't they talking in front of me, and then dealing with your own emotions in that way. So I could only imagine, but yeah, I'm just grateful that you're bringing this to light.
Yeah,
we brought it to light in that, I should say.
I don't think in the 293 shows, I don't think we've had this conversation. Yeah. I really, from a sibling's perspective. So again, So thank you so much, Brittany.
Yeah.
Now, one way in which you channeled your grief was by co-authoring a book with your daughter, Eliza, entitled "I'm Still." Am I saying the name right, by the way? Is it
Eliza? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Eliza.
Correct them if he's wrong.
Entitled "I'm Still a Big Sister." Can you tell us how this project came to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the book is essentially kind of our story. It kind of walks you through. Before I even got pregnant, Eliza was very big on wanting to be a big sister. That was her goal in life. That was, she talked about it a lot. She was very key in that decision-making process. And so, she was actually the first person that found out I was pregnant. I took a pregnancy test and she was the only one home. So me and her, we celebrated and, got excited and all that. And so she was very involved, and telling her, that her siblings died, obviously was very heartbreaking. And, one of the things that the doctors at the hospital gave me was the opportunities to either deliver right then, when I went in and found out, that both of them had died. They said, you can deliver now, we can go ahead and induce you, or you can go home and come back tomorrow. I'm a very big planner, so I like to have, everything kind of organized. And so that was a big deal for me, was to go home, because I also knew that telling her, she was going to understand everything. And this was going to not only rock our world, but it was going to rock her world. And, I wanted to give her that news face to face in a comforting environment. And unfortunately, at that moment, she was in the parking garage of the hospital. So I knew we needed to take her home and tell her. So the part of the book where, we tell her and she turns around and she was sitting at the window, she turns around and she just looks at us and says, but I really wanted to be a big sister. And, that to me made me realize that I needed to make sure she understood she was still a big sister. She was still going to be a big sister, and our girls were still going to be a part of our lives. And, what that looked like for us at that moment, I had no idea, but I knew as a grieving sibling, something just kind of flipped for me, where I realized I can't grieve like I did before.
Yeah.
I need to grieve where she can see that I'm grieving, but also, not go crazy with it, that she thinks she needs to console me. So we wrote the book, we talked about different things, her and I, what we wanted, in the book, what we wanted to show, One of the things was, we like to do our awareness walk. So that's, a piece in the book, and putting things on a shelf, lighting candles, having an angel bear in the book, different things like that. Those were things that, Eliza had very big hands on, as far as, getting her input in there. And it was a great thing. We had it written probably within the first year, but it did take a long time to find an illustrator that, I really liked. And, we finally found one, and it turned out really well, I think.
It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So many things I love about what you're doing. I love the fact that you included Eliza to do this book. I just think it's so important to get your story out and use your story in a way to help. Something I should have mentioned before I asked that question was, and I should say something I should have clarified. As a child, you lost your brother, and then you had Eliza, and then were pregnant again and lost twins in stillbirth. Obviously you're at different phases or points in your life, but did the experience of going through losing Eric help you kind of understand how to help Eliza more so than?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think it it kind of showed me what not to do. It showed me
go ahead. What is
it
not
showed me not to hide my emotions, to let her see them, because, but also, in a healthy way, like I said, making sure that she knows that she's not responsible for consoling me, and making sure that she feels comfortable talking about, her grief, and knowing, and a lot of times at, the beginning, we would just be sitting on the couch, and she would just mention, something about Sophie and Ruby, or, even when I was pregnant after our loss, she was a little anxious, and I could see that. So I got to the point where I would reassure her, every time I would come home from a doctor's appointment, it would be one of the first things I tell her. Everything looked great. I also had high-risk doctors. Well, for my twin pregnancy, I had high-risk doctors, but also for my pregnancy after loss, I did. So there was a lot of ultrasound. So she got to see, the baby a lot. And, I made sure and made a conscious effort to involve her in that pregnancy and make her feel reassured, which I probably wouldn't have really thought about, other than that. And I probably would have done the same thing that my parents did, is not really talked about it, that much in front of her if I could. And, having that experience of knowing that you should, and making sure it's okay, and normalizing that, it's okay to cry one day because you didn't, get to see your sisters grow up, or, you didn't get to do, different things, dress them up in twin outfits, and, things milestones that she was looking forward to, being a big sister. So that, I think that was the big thing, is knowing what not to do, which is suppressing everything, and knowing a few things. And of course, I'm not an expert, but having this unique experience allowed me that, to make it open and honest with her.
Yeah.
If you are just joining us, we are with Brittany Day, author of I'm Still a Big Sister. I just, for the second time, put the overlay of the book information. I love what you did and what you're doing. I really, really do. I'm going to ask you, Brittany, who would you say this book is for? Who should have this in their library? And then also, I would like for you to tell everyone what would you want readers to get out of it? What can readers expect from it?
Yeah, so it's really for everyone, as long as you kind of understand the subject matter. Obviously, you don't want to get this for a big sister that has a newborn at home, you know, that might be a little different for that kid. But, you know, the target audience would obviously be kids that have experienced the death of a sibling due to a pregnancy or infant loss, because it does walk you through being excited about being pregnant, seeing ultrasound pictures, going to the hospital, finding out the baby died, and then things after, you know, to give ideas to the families too of, you know, lighting candles for their birthday. It's okay to do things like that. It's okay to involve the children in things like that. They get excited, you know, about letting off bubbles and, you know, do different things, you know, in memory of their siblings. It's available right now on Amazon and, you know, many other online retailers. And, you know, just even if you don't have a loss, I have had people that have stumbled across it and, you know, they've said, you know, they didn't think about talking to children about death and how it could be a positive, you know, not loosely, a positive conversation, you know, of going forward. And that was the thing. We were finding a lot of resources and things like that were mainly sad. You know, there wasn't anything memorializing the baby on the other side, or, you know, there are some books, but some things just didn't speak to us the way, you know, we wanted it to speak to us.
I have a question. Was that when you're going through this, and was it more trial and error? I know that you had already gone through this with your brother in terms of grief, but this was a different kind of grief in that way. So were you, because you mentioned, you know, the candles and bubbles and all, it's like, is that just where you're like, hey, let's just try that, like in your head, not to her, to Liza, but like where you just like, let's just try this and see if it works? Or were you kind of, were there some instinct, or what was like your process in that way?
Well, I will tell you, the stillbirth community is amazing. You know, there's a lot of stillbirth families that are looking for resources. You know, and we find each other online, support groups and different things like that. And, you know, it's hard to find, you know, even a therapist that gets it, you know, and sometimes it's easier to find families that have been through it, and, you know, you can openly talk to them, just like we're talking today about grief. You know, nobody's gonna look at you any different because you're a grieving parent. You know, so that's where I got some things that, you know, I knew was important. You know, some people decide to do different things. Some people don't celebrate birthdays, or they, you know, maybe they do, but one spouse doesn't want to celebrate and one does. And so you got a lot of trial and error there. You know, in our case, you know, everybody, even my extended family, was pretty open about how we celebrated and, you know, kept the memory of our babies alive.
That's cool. Question. I've mentioned already that I love the fact that you wrote the book with Eliza. Did writing the book with Eliza, did it aid or change your grief at all? Your grief?
I think because it's kind of like, you know, healing your inner child, right? You know, things that I wish that maybe I'd had, you know, when I was younger, going through grief. And, you know, I think that's where I look at, maybe it did, you know, help my grief in a way. And it, you know, also helped, you know, we had something to talk about, you know, with me and Eliza, and even, you know, with her younger brother Enzio. It's something that she can show to him, and he's read it many times, and, you know, things like that. And, you know, it's something that we can continue to share our story without having to really tell everybody everything. You know, Eliza uses it when she meets a new teacher. We give a book to, you know, her new teachers, and, you know, that's her way of introducing, you know, her siblings. And so I think it helps in a way that it's an aid. if that makes sense.
That's great. So another facet of surviving siblings is the creation and distribution of memory boxes for bereaved siblings. How did this idea come to fruition, and why was launching this element of the brand so important to you?
Yeah, so the idea came, we were getting ready to launch the book, and one of the things, of course, was getting it into hands of kids that need it, right? So the first place we looked at was hospitals, especially the one that, I delivered Sophie and Ruby at. And, while we were, we donated tons of books to a bunch of different places, but specifically to our hospital, we wanted to do something a little special. So we decided to make these memory boxes. And, I've seen a lot of, families that have done care boxes for the parents after a loss. And I thought this was kind of a good way to have like a kind of companion box if there were siblings at home. And it's a good tool to have to help that conversation, if they need it. And so the box itself is just a white box, and it's just a blank canvas, right? So inside we've got crayons and stickers and a coloring sheet that you can label the box if you want, or you can use that, in a different way. There's different ways for writing, journaling type things. We've got a little notepad in there, little rainbow scratch pads. So if the kid, can't actually write things, they can just scribble on the rainbow scratch pads. And then also those little LCD writing tablets, like little notepads that you can kind of erase after you write on it. We also have, a little bear that's in a heart case. So that way, because the bear is, part of our story too. We, if you look at our social media, we have an angel bear that we use a lot in pictures and different things like that. It's kind of like our little mascot, so to speak. So we wanted them to have that. I know our hospital specifically, now they have a bereavement team. Mm-hmm. Which made it very easy, because I just met with the bereavement team at the hospital and said, hey, this is, what I was thinking about doing. And they told me what they offer for parents. And, they do a weighted teddy bear that weighs the same amount that their baby that died weighed at birth. So this, having that little teddy bear for the sibling just made it a little bit more special for me too, because then they would have their own little teddy bear that they could hold on to that was, a good size for their little hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Tosh.
Do you feel that the boxes kind of, I don't want to say conversational starters, but for the young ones, that it kind of opened up that dialogue for them? Because I'm always fascinated by younger people going through grief in that way, just because I was older. And so and you're here, and in that way, it's just, I know that it's just such a, I don't want to say heavy topic, because it needs to be addressed, but it is such a strong topic in that way. And it is because I just love the idea of the boxes and stuff like that. It kind of is like that conversational starter, I would assume. Is that kind of what has been your, I should say, notion too, in terms of seeing what it can do?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback, in that way. Of course, we include a copy of our book with every box. Mm-hmm. So that it's in itself, and one of the things, again, not to continue to go back to this, but, there's a couple of things, isolation, is a very big deal, making sure that the kids know that they're not alone. They're not the only ones going through this. There are other kids out there like them, and also, just like you said, having that conversation is tough. Nobody wants to have that conversation with a kid, right? Yeah. So how do you do it? How do you tell them? I know how I found out, and it was not the greatest. So again, that was, why it was a big deal for me to have that, be different. So even if they look at, the parent looks in the box and sees the book and it helps them, get an idea to tell their kid, and also, drawing and coloring and, different things like that. There's little pop-it fidget toys in there, and, just stuff that, the kid can hang on to and remember, because I can tell you my kids, anytime we go somewhere, like we go to the beach or, we go anywhere, the kids always grab something, or, something happened, they draw something, that reminds them of Sophie and Ruby, or, something like this. And I think the box is a good way to have something that the kid can put those things in. So say they grab some shells at the beach, they can put those in their box, and that's their, their special box. And they can, I tell people, I have a list on there of different, and not really instructions, but, helpful tips.
Guidelines,
yeah. And so one of them is make sure that the box is accessible, right? Because it's for the kid. You don't want to put it up on a shelf somewhere that they can't get to it, because I can't tell you how many times I walked into Eliza's room and she's reading our book, or she's looking at something that reminds her of Sophie and Ruby, or, anything like that. It's happened countless times. But if I had that stuff, put up on a shelf and she felt like she had to ask for it, or, something along those lines, then I don't know that she would feel comfortable doing that every time. But if it's down in a spot that she can get to, I think that's an important thing.
That's a great point. Yeah. And
Brittany, how can our community help support your cause? And how can we get more of these boxes into the hands of bereaved siblings?
So you can go to my website at survivingsiblings.org. And on there, you go to the Get Involved page, and there's a link to my Venmo and my PayPal. The PayPal, I believe, is at Box Donations, and the Venmo is Brittany M. Day. But you can go there, you can click. It's generally about $25 is about what the cost of each box would be. And right now, when I do a delivery, usually about every quarter, sometimes, more, I do 5 boxes. At least, I always do at least 5 boxes to make sure that they have some on hand. The last time I went, I did 10. I did 2 different departments at the hospital. So, that would be the easiest way if you would like to donate, and we'd be very appreciative of that.
I'm going to put this on the screen. I already did it once, but I would like to read it out just to make sure everyone knows, in case you were doing laundry while you're listening and you didn't see it. Now's your chance to see this beautiful overlay where you can support Brittany. Helping others. So it's make a donation. Thank you in advance for your donation. Every $25 donated supplies a box for a sibling. And you can sponsor a full hospital donation, which is 5 boxes for $125. Again, the Venmo is Brittany M. Day, and at PayPal, it's at Box Donations. So cool, and so important. So important. Now, Brittany, so we got them the information on the bereavement box donations and the book, the amazing book, I'm Still a Big Sister. Next question is, how can anyone who's watching or listening to this, how can they connect with you?
Yep. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. The handle is at Surviving Sibs. And our website is survivingsiblings.org. Instagram is probably going to be the easiest way to find me, because I'm on that more than, most other things. And if you have any questions, you can always inbox me. I'm on there pretty regularly. So, usually I'll get back to you within an hour or 2, depending on how the day's going.
Do you want me to share this email?
Oh, yeah. My email is survivingsibs@gmail. Yep, you can email me too. Absolutely.
Okay, I want to make sure of that. I didn't want.
Yeah, you always ask.
Yeah, that's
fine. Very cool. Brittany, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I want to just thank you for being here. I can't believe it. Now that you've been on here, I could say that you're the first one to talk about sibling grief. It's one of those things where I do feel like it's the forgotten grief. And it's a real grief, and it's something that impacts more than any of us would have considered. So I thank you for being a voice and shining a light on sibling grief. Before we wrap up, I warned you, we like to give our guests some time to share with the community anything they want to. It could be on topic, it could be off topic, it could be about a story you heard the other day, about a story you're watching, a streaming video or streaming, anything you want. Cooking recipe, it doesn't matter to us. This is your time to give our community anything you want to give them. So, with that said, the floor is yours.
Yep. So I know I mentioned the stillbirth community is, very, very big and very supportive. So I definitely want to highlight some organizations that I've worked with in order to end preventable stillbirths, because there are a lot of stillbirths that can be prevented that, just go under the radar. So a big organization that I work with is Push for Empowered Pregnancy. And they do, if you look on Instagram at Push Pregnancy, they give a lot of great safety, safe pregnancy tips, to look out for. The other one that I work with is Healthy Birthday, which is the organization that, a lot of people are familiar with, which is Count the Kicks. They started the Count the Kicks app, which helps teach the pregnant person how to monitor their baby's movements in the third trimester. And that's a big deal. There's a lot of old wives' tales of the baby slows down at the end of pregnancy and runs out of room and, things like that. And that's just not the case. They say if you don't feel movement, drink some orange juice or some cold water. And that is horrible advice we've figured out, because if you feel any type of change in movement, or you just, as a mom, you have that intuition, you feel like something's wrong, go get checked. You can go to the hospital to labor and delivery as many times as you need to. And I think a lot of people don't think that. They don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden. Go to the hospital if you feel like you need to. Also, a big deal with these advocacy group or with these organizations, we've been working with a lot of state and federal advocacy to have legislation introduced and hopefully passed this year to improve pregnancy outcomes. So you can follow either my social media or the organizations I mentioned, their social media, and you can follow along on that process too.
Right.
Great. Well done. Thank you for sharing all of that information, Brittany.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, a couple of comments I want to highlight. Summer Violence says, I lost a friend in high school, and her brother still goes to therapy because of losing his big sister. Summer Violence also says, my grandma lost my aunt when my aunt was 3 months old and my dad was a teen. We always brought candles to her grave, so even I knew her because she was always remembered. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Talking about beautiful.
Love to see that.
Carrie says beautiful cover. Talking about the book.
Thank you.
I completely agree. And then Sequoia says, today is 2 years since my sister passed, and my aunt's mom's best friend homecoming service was today. Sending you so much love, Sequoia.
Yes.
Just sending you so much love. Caitlin says, very inspiring, Brittany. Thank you for the great work you do in the grief space. Dee's Tiny Kitchen says, you are so brave, Brittany, sending hugs. And then Suzanne says, TD, do you have a camera in my house? I am literally doing laundry while listening. Possibly, Suzanne. No, I'm just playing. But one more thing I want to add is, Taj, we were talking about the applause track. April approves. Applause are nice. Jack Love says, I love the applause. And Carrie says the applause is a great addition to the show. A couple more things I should say is Summer Violence is Taj. You need to watch the movie Man Called Otto. Great movie on grief. Cried my eyes out throughout the movie. So touching.
That is a great movie if you haven't seen it.
I have not seen it yet.
It can be a little triggering, but it's very good. It's very good.
Okay.
And then Carol, didn't want to forget you, Carol. Carol says, my late mom had a stillborn. I had a beautiful dream of him. I dreamed he was the most beautiful baby. Someday I will see him. Such sweet messages, everyone. And again, we want to thank you all for being part of the community and part of the show. The show doesn't happen without you all and your love. So we just want to thank you. Brittany, we want to thank you as well. Again, I've mentioned it several times already, but for you to come on here and talk about sibling grief, it was a big thing for us. So thank you so much.
Yep.
Taj, am I missing anything?
Not that I know of. Just, okay. I mean, always learning. So thank you, Brittany.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and thank you for 293 shows. That's amazing. So you guys are doing excellent work.
You are more than welcome. Once again, her name is Brittany Day. Let me make sure I get all the contact stuff. So you can go to website survivingsiblings.org. You can email her at survivingsibs@gmail.com, or you can simply find her on Instagram at survivingsibs. Please go and support Brittany. Help her do her thing to help others. And I think that is it. We will be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m., I believe. Yes, I think so. If not, you'll hear from us. Make sure you're following our Instagram as well. That's where we will put all that news. But I think that is it. Brittany, anything else you want to share? Taj, we're good?
No, good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, y'all, for watching, and we will see you guys next Wednesday. Adios, everyone. Bye.